wish to say two things in a hurry or three things in a hurry about this. Number one, it is true that the budgets are estimates and therefore they cannot be exact. And that's why at the tail end of every financial year ending, we end up with these appropriations that mop up the other funds. But I want to be specific about the A monies, which most of the MDAs are not declaring in full. And this is where, Honorable Speaker, we are beginning the corruption. And this has been going on for the longest period of time. That MDAs don't declare the full amount that they are able to actually collect at their point. And therefore wait until when the government has given them enough monies throughout the year and then declare them later on so that they're allowed to spend these monies. And that's why you'll notice that between now and 30th of this month, there'll be a lot of workshops for all the MDAs we have and easy spending and furniture buying and things like those ones, which is something that needs to be fixed. And I want to tell the chair of the budget that this is something that has to be fixed and this parliament must fix it so that we control and we are able to give the correct estimates of what is collected by the MDAs at A. Number two, I want to speak about the projects that are co-funded by foreign aid and which have actually really punished it. Honorable Speaker, currently we have over 700 billion which we borrowed from outside and which is attached to support by the Exchequer, which we have not given our part of the deal. And therefore we are being not only surcharged for not using those particular loans, while at the same time we are not using the loans. So we have money outside there which the government committed to give its part of the bargain, but has not done so. I think this is one area again where the chair of the budget and budget must take care, because I rein in the individual ministries to see who are these ministries that are unable to absorb their monies, even after we have already signed the deals for the loans or for the foreigners to give us their part of the bargain. And if anything, some of them are dangerously done because they are only done for the sake of kickbacks. And therefore we get the loan far much earlier than the time we are ready to spend. Finally, Honorable Speaker, let me just make a reply, a small talk about what you talked about yourself, about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That must have been 1933 to 1939. But I really thank you because most of the things you talked about when Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who is an extraordinary president of America, having ruled for a longer time than any other president would do, he brought in what maybe you did not mention called the 3 R's. And the 3 R's, he was really going for relief for the unemployed and the poor. And possibly I see this government very keen about relief for the poor and the unemployed. And you saw yesterday, it's about can we create more employment and more employment. And that's why I was happy with you when you said let's give them a chance. He also went for relief for the elderly, and which I saw a lot of it in the budget. And it seems, be that as it may, that we are on the right track. But above all, Honorable Speaker, in the last hour, he talked about the relief and support for the farmers. And I think that's what I'm seeing this government do. And that's how Franklin Delano Roosevelt was able to turn around the economy of America at a time when there was the Great Depression. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to support the Supplementary Appropriations Bill number 3. And Honorable Speaker, I want to make the following observations. One, Honorable Speaker, even though this House, through the departmental committees, appropriates resources to MDAs and ministries, we have observed that the House does not engage in proper oversight and implementation of these budgets. And this is the reason why, Honorable Speaker, you realize that towards the end of the financial year, a lot of MDAs have not even begun implementing development projects This is actually the reason why, in the end, you find that these supplementary budgets reallocate resources because they have not been spent. So I would like to urge this House to ensure that even though we allocate resources, we follow up to ensure that the projects are being implemented on the ground. The second observation I wanted to make, Honorable Speaker, is that there is continuous overestimation of revenue projections. Each and every year, Treasury says we are going targets. I think it is time that we insist as a House that revenue projections are realistic and that what is projected is what is actually going to be achieved. It is not rocket science, Honorable Speaker. This is something which we can do. We know what KRA is doing. We know the capacity of our economy. So we should never allow figures to be brought before this House that will not be realized. Because this is really what's affecting the budget implementation. Because when you say you are going to collect this amount of money and you don't do it, it means that the promises you gave to the people on the ground in terms of public participation, some of those projects will not be achieved, and it will affect the people on the ground. Thirdly, Honourable Speaker, is that we have noted that there is continuous misuse of Article 223. Honourable Speaker, this House is investigating misuse of this article, and I know that there are committees that are investigating usage of this article in the previous regime, and reports are going to be presented in this House. But even though this is ongoing, we are still seeing government still using this article inappropriately. And I think this is also something which we said, Honourable Speaker, that we should never allow as a House. Whatever the justifications, I don't think it is appropriate for this House to allow government to spend money which is not budgeted for. Unless it is serious emergency, but the resources that have been used on this budget in the area of Article 223 is not making sense. I don't think the government should have done that. I think let us be strict as a House and insist that the budget as approved in this House is what needs to be implemented. The third observation I wanted to make, Honourable Speaker, has to do with the absorption of donor-funded development projects. Honourable Speaker, this is a crisis. And Honourable Speaker, from my previous background, I worked in the banking sector. And I can tell you, Honourable Speaker, that donor-funded projects does not move very fast. They do not move very fast because of the involvement of the donors themselves. Because when a donor is giving you resources to do a project, they want to participate in the procurement process. They want to ensure that the company implementing the projects are their own companies. They want to regulate, how resources flow. And this is affecting development projects. Honourable Speaker, in my constituency, there's a project which is funded by World Bank. And this project has dragged over the years beyond the period which the project was supposed to last. And each and every year, the government has to go back to the donor to request for extension of the project period. And if you look at the reasons why this project has delayed, it is purely because of the donor misbehavior. So I think if we are going to rely on donors to support our projects through loans, then we need to ask our technocrats in Treasury to define the procedures that should be used to fast-track these projects. Otherwise, we are going to have big, huge development allocations from donors which we will never spend and which, in the end, is going to hurt the performance of our economy. Otherwise, thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and I want to thank my chairman, my able and competent chairman, Honourable Mdindi Nyoro, for a wonderful presentation of this report. Thank you.
Honourable Bowen Kangogo.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity to support this supplementary appropriation too. And Mr. Speaker, like the chair of budget said, that this is just a realignment from the previous supplementary budget. Mr. Speaker, there is a lot which is still required, especially in the education sector. Mr. Speaker, there is a very little disbursement, especially on capitation of our primary and secondary schools. And with the passage of this supplementary appropriation bill, Mr. Speaker, is going to help, especially our schools which are really struggling because of liquidations. Mr. Speaker, there is a lot of pending bills. This government engaged a lot of contractors. People have been in the fields working on different projects. And with the passing of this appropriation bill, those people are going to be paid, Mr. Speaker, because some of them, they have taken loans, and there is need for them to be paid because of the work they have done. Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about the donor-funded projects. Like the Honorable Attorney said, that most of these donor-funded projects, they come with some conditions. Mr. Speaker, I'm the chair of Blue Economy and Water. And if you see, many of the stalled projects in water are donor-funded projects. These are projects which comes with a condition that the contractor must be from that country giving us the donors. For instance, we have a case of Italian cooperation projects, which has many of them, they have stalled because they are seeking to have Italian contractors to work on these projects. And this one, and it's not possible to operate, for them to operate from Rome and work or implement projects which are working in this country. Mr. Speaker, again, on the big projects, I think, Mr. Speaker, the ministries, before they engage on the huge projects like the dams in this country, there is need for them to acquire the land first. Because you will find that the contractor is already been contracted, is given, he has an active contract, is supposed to move to the site, but you will find that the land acquisition is not there. So it delays the entire process. Mr. Speaker, I want to talk on the issue of consultants. If you look at how much the government is paying in terms of consultants, you will find that a project has a consultant money even bigger or even much equal than the project itself. I want to ask the Honorable Chair of Budget to look into this, because there is no way you can have almost half of money for a project going towards consultants. When the government also, for instance, Mr. Speaker, in water projects, the government, they have so many engineers in this country. But you will still find that the amount of money given out for consultancy is more than even what is required to develop those projects. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the committee of the Public Accounts Committee, what is the role of Public Accounts Committee reports vis-a-vis the budget making process? Mr. Speaker, you will find that we have tabled so many reports here, public accounts reports showing misappropriation of funds in our ministries and the MDAs. But during the budget making process, those reports are not factored in to make sure that the ministries and the MDAs, which they have misappropriated a certain amount of money, that money should be reduced equal to what the budget, the BSC reports is reported. Mr. Speaker, on issues of borrowing, Mr. Speaker, we support that we cannot continue borrowing. But at times, Mr. Speaker, if there is need for us to borrow, let's borrow and use the borrowed money to specific projects which are meant, to which the borrowing was meant, and to avoid cases where we borrow and that money gets lost without any tangible project. I want to support, Honorable Speaker.
Badi, MP for Changamwe.
Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi ni mjumbe wa Jomvu. Jomvu imekatwa kutoka Changamwe, ndio tukapata Jomvu, na kutoka wakati Jomvu ilipoundwa mwaka 2013 mpaka leo mimi ndio mbunge wake. Kwa hivyo mimi ni mbunge wa Jomvu wa kudumu. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nashukuru, nataka kuunga mkono mswada huu na vile vile kumpongeza Mheshimiwa Ndine Nyoro kwa ile kazi nzuri ambayo amefanya. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, pia nachukua maneno yako ambayo umeweza kuyaongea juu ya nchi kama Korea na nchi nyingine. Ni majuzi tu Mheshimiwa Spika, maneno yako ni ya kweli, kwa sababu tulikuwa nchini Korea. Ndani ya Seoul peke yake, Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna madaraja 32 katika river. ambayo ile ni hali ambayo tumeiona ya maendeleo sana. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, yale ambayo yanafanyika katika nchi nyingine, tunatarajia na sisi tukipata pesa zetu tutaweza kupeleka pesa hizi kwa miradi ile ambayo imetengwa kuifanyia kazi, sio kufanya ufisadi na pesa zile. Kwa ajili bajeti hii ya ziada ama supplementary budget, Mheshimiwa, tukiangalia ni mpaka tarehe 30 mwisho wa mwezi ndio mwisho wa kumalizika kwa mwaka wa bajeti. Kwa hivyo ni wakati mzuri kuona kama wenzetu vile walivyosema kuwa pesa zile zinapelekwa kwenye miradi na kutumika vizuri. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi leo nazungumzia kuhusu Jomvu. Jomvu kuna mahali kunaitwa Jomvu Madafuni ambapo kulitengenezwa barabara project A109 kutoka Baroda kuja ikamalizikia hapo Madafuni. Mheshimiwa Spika, pana kipande cha mita 800 peke yake. Hata makamu wa rais Mheshimiwa Gachagua alipokuja kuzindua mradi pale Bonje, alizungushwa mpaka Changamwe kilomita 5 na mahali ambapo ni pa mita 800 pa kupita kufika kwenye mahali pengine ambapo anakwenda kufungua mradi. Nasema hivyo kwa maana wale watu wa serikali walikuwa hawataki makamu wa rais yaone yale. Lakini uzuri nilisema mbele yake na nikaeleza mbele yake kwa nini alizungushwa, ni kwa sababu asione pale mahali pabovu. Mheshimiwa Spika, mahali pabovu hapo pamefanyika maandamano na watu wangu pale wakilia. Mimi nasema haya kwa sababu pesa hizi zikipatikana zisifanyiwe ubadhirifu, pesa hizi zipelekwe kwenye miradi ile ambayo inastahili. Na moja ya mradi ambao wastahili ni kumaliza hicho kipande cha Jomvu Madafuni ili kuona kimeweza kutengenezwa katika hii bajeti ya ziada. Nasema haya Mheshimiwa Spika kwa sababu pesa katika mradi ule kuna pesa kutoka African Development Bank. Pesa katika mradi ule kuna pesa za European Union ambazo ziliekwa, lakini leo zimefujwa mpaka leo watu wanadai. Kuna watu katika sehemu ya Nakol ambayo mimi Mwenyezi Mungu akinijalia siku ya Jumanne nitaleta petition yao hapa bunge, kwa kuwa waliweza kuondolewa na pasi na kulipwa na wakati pesa ile iko. Kwa hivyo tuna hofu pia pesa hii kupatikana alafu iende katika njia ambayo itakuwa sio. Mheshimiwa Spika, ufisadi katika Kenya umekithiri sana. Leo kuna kampuni ati katika hapo mahali imeenda kuchukua kotoda inaitwa Synergy Gases ya negotiate na serikali, alafu kisha mwenye kampuni ati aiambia serikali na kupunguzia milioni 50. Mimi sijaiona kuwa private entity iweze kusamehe serikali, isipokuwa hii ni negotiation ambao waliifanya na National Land Commission na watu wale wa Kenha. Kwa hivyo naiomba serikali kuona kuwa Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro kazi nzuri anayofanya, pesa hii kipatikana iende pale kwa ile miradi ambayo inaweza kupatikana. Na vile vile na kupongeza Mheshimiwa Mwenyekiti kwa kazi nzuri kuonesha tajriba kama kijana kusimamia katika bajeti ya Kenya. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika na Mungu aibariki nchi.
MP for Kilifi North.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this supplementary appropriations bill, and in supporting it, I know when I was on the other side with my brother Mbadi, we used to be very critical about 223 and why it should not be used by governments, because we always felt that one, it is one of the ways that propelled corruption. Two, we felt that it is the wrong way to manage a government and to manage finances in a government, because you're giving an opportunity for people to spend money the way they want without regard to the law passed in this parliament. And I agree totally that it is the wrong way to do. But then coming to this supplementary 2 that we are doing today, I think it is necessary now that we finish this 223 this financial year. So I would like to urge the implementers of government budgets, while this year we are doing it supplementary 2, we would like to see that in future we do not have a supplementary 2, and that this article is disabused so that we do not have the abuse that goes on in government offices because of that. But having said that, Honorable Speaker, I want to say this. There's a lady called Marjorie Oluthe Magoye who wrote a book called Coming to Birth. And in that book, he says a birth is a very difficult process because before the birth, there has to be a pregnancy. And that pregnancy sometimes gets complicated, sometimes you lose hope, sometimes things do not. But the most important thing that you look at forward to is that a child is born. But coming to birth is a process. This country is coming to birth. But the process will be painful, will be difficult, will go under the hills, under the valleys, will go all through those places. But I'm very optimistic that with this budget that my friend Dindi Nyoro is midwifing, and that our dear brother Kuria is midwifing the finance bill, I think this 13th parliament will be counted as those that helped this country to come to birth. And I want to ask us, as a country and as a parliament, to look forward to the better days. It will be difficult. The pumps, the fuel at the pumps will be high. Many other things will be, but we need to look at the bigger picture, the long term. Why are we doing this? The long term is more important than the short term. The short term will be painful, but the long term will be gainful. And this country needs to look to that. Honorable Speaker, we are making reductions and we are making additions, and we're doing that in this appropriations bill that we're dealing with. But as we are doing this, I want from the podium of this parliament to tell government officials that have been given the responsibility to spend government money, to spend it wisely and for the benefit of the country. I want to ask government ministers and PSs whose docket this money will be put in to sit there and look at this money not as theirs, not as their families, not for their mothers, but money for the people of Kenya that must be spent prudently, properly for the growth and development of this country. That's what we want to see. And as a house, we have the oversight responsibility that I would like the committee chaired by John Badi to call them and ask them and put them to task. We want greater accountability from ministers and from PSs so that at the end of it, Kenya is proud because we have a team that can take this country forward. The president has goodwill and the president wants this country to move forward, and he is taking bold and sometimes dangerous steps. But the end game, ultimately, this country must rise and must come to birth in a fashion that everybody will be happy. Honorable Speaker, I would like to ask members here to cooperate with the chairman of the Budget Appropriations Committee. We pass this bill, we pass the other bills, and sit down and say, now let's make sure all of us work and support this government to achieve the ultimate goal, which is to take this country to the next level and to ensure the hustlers of this country are proud because we have taken them from the bottom to the higher end, because that's what we want, and that is what we want to achieve in these budget processes that we're doing. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
MP for Kachiliba, Lote.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I am rising to support the passing of this supplementary appropriation bill, number 2, with the following. Mr. Speaker, if we look at the reasoning of us having supplementary budgets, is for purposes of us trying to get a bearing from the budgets that have been done before, collecting and redirecting resources to the most appropriate area, Mr. Speaker. It is sad, Mr. Speaker, that as a House, we sit to look at budgets, approve them, and then allow the executive to be able to manage these budgets in a proper manner. Sometimes, Mr. Speaker, it becomes so saddening that when we sit here and be able to present our budgets and be able to approve these budgets, the executives sit and not do anything apart from running from one venue to another one with the tag of development, only for them to actually come to this House at the end of the financial year to ask for supplementary budgets. Mr. Speaker, it is sad that if you look at every government offices now, as we come to close to the financial year, This is the time when you hear ministries, you hear departments asking that IFMIS be extended beyond the period that is supposed to. Why is it that at this point is when we ask that let IFMIS be allowed to be open? This is the time when there's a lot of traffic in our IFMIS systems in this country. Because for a whole year, most of the executive officials will run from one venue to another one without knowing that we've given them these budgets for them to be able to deliver to the people of Kenya. If you look at the expenditure that comes at the tail end of the year, Mr. Speaker, most of these expenditures are not for development, Mr. Speaker. Most of them will want to print T-shirts. Some of them will want to actually even travel from one venue to another one in the name of workshops, at the expense of the development that these budgets are supposed to do. Because most of them are afraid of returning the monies, and so they want to show that they can be able to spend. Because of that, they put these monies in things that are not going to develop this country, Mr. Speaker. And so I want to say that as we look through supplementary appropriation in future, we need to look at it in a manner that we see that resources are directed to the things that will help this country move forward and not the officials stay very comfortably. Mr. Speaker, we are also aware that this country is managed by the executive wing through the PSS down to directors. Mr. Speaker, it is sad, and I'll say this, that resources are always directed most of the times to areas where these officials are coming from, Mr. Speaker. People of Kachaliba who do not have a lot of people sitting in offices do not get resources, despite the fact that I sit here as a member of parliament and actually approve this appropriation. But when it goes to the officers there, they do not know Kachaliba, and there is no person from Kachaliba that sits to say at least some of these resources go there. That is why we are asking, can these resources be directed equitably across the country and not from the angle of where do I come from? We will want to talk about this because there are areas that are continually being marginalized despite the budgets because of the fact that they do not have people sitting in big offices. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I will want to say this, that there are a lot of projects that the government have started. But surprisingly, if you go to our highways, for example, our highways are well done. But immediately the highways start to wear out. Nobody is actually trying to put resources. And I don't know if it's our disease of the Africans or what. There are no resources that are put to maintain already made projects. So I actually want to laud the budget committee chair and the budgets that have been put, but also to say that let us not continue initiating new projects if we have not been able to finish the projects that we started, and that if we are also not able to put resources, Mr. Speaker, to be able to maintain some of the projects that have been done in this country. So it is sad that you have a good road, and when there's a pothole, we want to do another new road, and yet we cannot continue maintaining the one that we did before. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this appropriation.
What's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I am looking at first of all, I must thank the members who are here present, because you know, the time we left the House chamber last night, and I know this bill has elicited a lot of interest, but Mr. Speaker, I'm looking at the order paper, and I see that the next bill is also a bill on the same issue of money and budget, and I think the members who are present in the House would want to contribute because there is a lot of interest, but it is the same. It talks to the same thing. So I am standing on standing order number 95-1, and I'm asking that the mover be called to reply so that we move to the next bill, and the other members will be given the opportunity to contribute to this bill in the next bill. In the next order, Mr. Speaker, I submit.
Put the question. Okay, the Honorable, your point is taken, and the chair will act appropriately accordingly. But let's hear from Honorable Mbadi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to say much on this bill. I just want to start by mentioning the following: that Honorable Ndindi Nyoro is actually the 6th chair of this committee, both the current Budget and Appropriation Committee and the predecessor committee. The first one was Martin Ogindo, then we came to Elias Mbau, then Mutava Musimi, Imani Chungwa, Kanini Kega, and now we have Ndindi Nyoro. I must say that Ndindi Nyoro is coming out. I want to repeat this again as a very good member of this committee, because you explain a lot to members to understand what is contained in the budget estimates. But allow me just to say the following, Chair, Mr. Speaker. First, Public Accounts Committee has a responsibility, yes, and as the chair of that committee, I give my guarantee to this House that by mid-July, which is next month, you will receive the first report from our committee of 2020-2021, and we intend to complete 2021-2022 by October this year, so that from next year, February, we'll be dealing with those accounts which were presided over by the current principal secretaries. Therefore, that will enhance accountability. Mr. Speaker, I agree with the chair that certain expenditures under recurrent are actually capital in nature, and that education is one of them. Actually, I've been saying before that education, we should consider looking at it as a capital expenditure, because there is nothing as important investment. There is no investment as important as investing in education. But Mr. Speaker, I want the chair of the Budget Committee to be looking at the luxury lines all the time when we are doing the budgets. And the luxury lines are basically 4. That is the domestic travels, foreign travels, hospitality, and then fuel and maintenance lines of our budgets. This is where we have a lot of wastages. But I also want to appeal to this House and the country at large that we need also to consider what is happening in the counties. There is overemployment in the counties. You find a new governor coming into place and hiring drivers, and the drivers who were used by the previous regime are earning a salary without vehicles to drive. Really, the role of a driver is to drive a vehicle. So if you have put a driver to earn a salary without a vehicle assigned to that driver, honestly, this is serious wastage. I don't know whether it is what kind of fear that they have, that they end up now fearing the drivers of the previous. I wonder whether the drivers would want to kill them and in the process also kill themselves. But Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, the problem again in this country, and you see, we need to employ prudent, efficient, and effective utilization or application of our resources to realize economy in the use of resources. I am disturbed, Mr. Speaker, with the 2 things. Emerging cases of corruption. When we were campaigning in the last election, both sides were in agreement on one thing, that this country is at a difficult period in the history of this country, in terms of debt repayment, in terms of generally managing to pay for government services. That we were in agreement. And we agreed that we need to do something on wastages. That was also agreed. Probably where we disagreed is how to actualize the same. Fight against corruption must be prioritized. Mr. Speaker, we are seeing financing of luxury. That is what is bringing this country down. We are financing luxury and bloated government. There is no need to enlarge the size of this government any further. We have too much government in place, both at the national level and at the county level. Kenyans are overrepresented. Kenyans feel overburdened by government. A very heavy government weighing on our people and sinking this economy. We need to reduce the size of government, not by retrenching people, but by not creating any additional offices. They are unnecessary wastage of resources. And luxury, and I want to be very clear, my last comment. You find a cabinet secretary downtrodden everywhere. And like the one for where Honorable Kagombe comes from, the one for trade. Honestly, I don't even think he represents this country. If what he's saying locally, Mr. Speaker, causes a lot.
Mogaka, MP for West Mugrangu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored to also support this supplementary estimate appropriation number 2. And before I do so, permit me to also join my colleagues to thank the chair of the Budget Committee, as well as the chair of the Finance Committee, for navigating the country and this House to where we are today. This is the very first ever finance bill for this government, a bill that has attracted interest, unprecedented interest, and educated the entire population on how budget making is taken through. Specifically on the appropriation 2 that we are dealing with, it is important that the government closes the remaining aspects of the previous budget, so that as we go into 1st July, we start on a new slate on the 2023-2024 budget, which is going to be a game changer. It is going to be a game changer right from this House, but it takes this House to make the executive responsible for implementing the projects as budgeted for. I want to ask all members of this House, in our collective oversight role, let us drive and oversight the executive of this country to ensure that Kenyans get value for their budget. I am particularly excited about this budget, and under Article 27 of the Constitution, every Kenyan should be treated equally. And the discomfort that we were having about the 8% VAT was actually very discriminatory, because the users of petroleum products were the only ones paying 8% VAT, when the rest of Kenyans, including mama mbogas who buy kibiriti, are paying 16% VAT. That amendment that we made yesterday equalized all Kenyans, so that under the VAT Act, every Kenyan is treated equally, pays equal VAT irrespective of what product they are going to purchase. Under this budget, and I encourage our chair, Ndindi Nyoro, to be hands-on in driving and ensuring that our infrastructure, particularly those that are ongoing, are completed. I want to see under this budget that the pending ongoing projects in my constituency, whether it is Nyaisa Secondary School, Nyansabakwa Secondary School, Nyamtentemi Secondary School, Senator Kebaso Secondary School, we want to see completion of these projects so that our constituents can start enjoying value for the taxes that they are going to pay. I want to support this bill and promise Kenyans that I will do my part as a member of parliament to do the oversight and ensure that Kenya very soon joins Singapore and South Korea as one of the most developed countries. I support.
Wanyonyi of Kwanza.
You're behind me. Okay, thank you. Madam Speaker, thank you very much for this opportunity. I want on onset to agree with the present of this appropriation bill. But first and foremost, I think my observation, Mr. Speaker, is that we have, I think it's lack of discipline in this country. We are getting out of hand. The discipline in this country is not, the way we expect to be. First of all, look at A&A, where you find resources are actually misplaced, misused, because you get whatever you are getting and that resource actually is misplaced. No wonder, and I think that this House has a duty. We are now bringing CSS to come here and answer. So we must now do what we're supposed to do as the representative of these people, of our people, to ask the CSS and what have you to answer to some of these things, because you find that the generation of some of the resources are actually misplaced. And I want to agree with the Honorable Body, the way he talked about people now even employing people are not necessary in town organizations. Two, we must also generate our own income. And the Speaker, I agree with you. I think years back, we had Koreans actually come in this country to borrow money to do the work there. During, I think those are days of the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And yet today now we find that the debt is actually up to 62% from what I've been told. Why? Because people are not serious with that as they're supposed to be doing. We have, for example, people are not, we have enough resources in this country. The climatic change, of course, is there, but we find that in this country, we are able to produce our own food. Today, and we, through what we have gone through the drought, imagine we importing food from Egypt. We importing food from Egypt, yet if you look at Egypt compared with Kenya, Kenya, for example, Lake Basin, where most of these people are coming from, has almost, there are 8 rivers in Lake Basin, and we can be able to do irrigation. Egypt has only got 1 river, and yet this country, Mr. Speaker, import rice from Egypt compared to what we have here. I worked in Lake Basin, for example, and I can tell you that we have enough resources. Even that Lake Basin alone should be able to afford this country and even be able to export some of the food that are produced in these areas. And you can imagine us importing rice from Egypt, a country that has got only 1 river. And yet here, apart from, of course, Lake Basin, which has got 8 rivers, and I can name them, you know that. We could be able to do irrigation in that area, but we are not able to do that because people have just taken it lightly. So we just have to work as Kenyans. We have enough resources here. We have very good climatic change. And therefore, as part of discipline, Mr. Speaker, we should be able to fit ourselves and be able to export, to be able to do 1 or 2 things for our country. Lastly and not least, imagine us having a debt of 6.5%, and it's because of corruption. Nothing else. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, we actually should do something about this so that we can be able to direct the resources to the right place, not misdirecting the resources. And that's why we are having problems, and that's why we are having debts that actually up to 62% is unbelievable. But that's what you have been told, and therefore I support this appropriation appeal, and I hope that Kenyans at least once, let's get disciplined and be able to direct our country, be able to export. Look at the tourism, for example. It's only going down compared to what we had in the past. Now that we don't get enough tourists in this country, and when they come, they are taken to places that are not supposed to be taken, and they don't come back. I support.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Yes, what's your point of order?
Are you?
Once again, Mr. Speaker, you know, this week and the past week, we've been discussing the budget and the appropriations and all these things, and we have properly executed a lot of issues on this floor. And the next motion, Mr. Speaker, is still about what we're discussing now. And I know members have expressed interest. And hold on, Honorable Okello. So I'm requesting, Speaker, that you call them over to reply so that we move to the next order, and which is the same, and members are going to address their issues.
Honorable member, your point is met. I now propose the question that the mover be called upon to reply. I now put the question that the mover be called upon to reply. As many of the appearance say aye. As many of the contrary appearance say nay. The ayes have it.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And I want to laud all the members who have contributed and assure them that we were actually taking notes. Myself, I was personally doing so. From Honorable Anyonyi, Honorable Mogaka, my good brother, Honorable Badi, Honorable Rote Kachelimba, Honorable Owen Baya, my brother Twalib, Honorable Badi Twalib, my Honorable Kagongo, who is the chair for water, Samuel Atandi, one of the committee members, Honorable Boko Miremba, Professor Barto, Dr. Onchoke, who is also very experienced in these matters, and of course you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, just want to highlight a few things and agree. I hope the consultations can be lower. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I want to do it very briefly, but it is important to note some of the issues that we have had because they enrich the debate. And Honorable Speaker, today we have had a very quality debate on this matter, and especially across the spectrum of the entire economy. Honorable Speaker, some of the issues that I said before about A&A have been highlighted by the members who have taken part in the debate. And I want to bring one matter that I've heard also from Honorable Badi. The issue of having a bloated government. And I agree 100% with you, Honorable Badi. And actually what we did, and it is important for members to also listen to this. In this budget that we made of year 2023-2024, we never approved any increment in personal emoluments or PE for additional staff of government, except for a few areas. We only approved additional staff in TSC, in KMTC, in trainers of our TVETs, and Honorable Speaker, we made it very difficult for any MDA to actually add staff. Because, Honorable Speaker, the government of Kenya has more staff than we need. What we need to do is actually reallocation. On a normal constituency, Honorable Speaker, you get there is a youth officer, there is an Uwezo Fund officer, there is a women fund officer, there is a gender officer. Honorable Speaker, you get people, duplication of like 9 government officers serving in a single sub-county, roles that could generally be done by just a few. So what we may need to do in future, Honorable Speaker, is to be able to optimize on the resources that we already have other than adding into more. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, allow me to go back to your topic. And you got the entire 10 minutes and we learned a lot from it. As I reply, and from the benefit that I got, and I agree with you on many respects, but I want to give you reasons why we are not committed to borrowing further. The case, for example, you cited on Japan. Japan has over 250% debt to GDP ratio, or a percentage of debt in regards to GDP. But Honorable Speaker, Japan borrows very cheaply. At some point, the 10-year board of Japanese government was actually on negative territories. Can you just imagine? They borrow money, they pay less. Secondly, Japan is a net lender. As much as we read Japan has a lot of debt, Japan is also the #1 external creditor to the US government. But also lastly, the trap of overborrowing. Japan has overborrowed, then the interest rates are low. Honorable Speaker, most of this debt, of course, is domestic. But if you look at the books of Japanese economy, they have had no real growth since 1994. For 30 years, their real GDP has remained at 4.9 trillion US dollars. So we don't want to get into that trap where you actually don't even have inflation, you have deflation. When a country starts having deflation, it is a worse territory than inflation, because then you tell the consumers to postpone their spending. When consumers postpone their spending, generally what that means is that production goes lower. And I don't think Kenya would be very safe. And lastly also, the example you cited on the US. US, they almost had a shutdown the other day. Of course, they wanted to increase the debt, which they succeeded. But 70% of the US debt portfolio is actually internal. Therefore, they are able to manage, and also the greenback is their currency. Honorable Speaker, a luxury that we don't have. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply.
I don't think there's any need to ring the bell. Order, honorable members, we have quorum. Honorable members, I now put the question that the supplementary appropriation number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2023 be now read a second time. As many as the opinion say aye. As many as opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to authorize the issue of certain sums of money out of the consolidated fund and their application towards the service of the year ending on 30th June 2023, and to appropriate those sums for certain public services and purposes. Order number 11, the County Government's Additional Allocation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 23 of 2023. Second reading.
Honorable Ndindi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the County Government Additional Allocation Bill, that is the National Assembly Bill number 23 of 2023, be read for a second time. Honorable Speaker, as even the title of the bill suggests, this is the county government's additional. I want to underline that, Honorable Speaker, because I don't wish to take too much time moving this motion so that more time can be spread across other members. Honorable members, the bill we are discussing is a bill on government's additional allocation to the county governments. Additional allocation means these are monies over and above the Kenya shillings 385 billion that we are allocating as equitable share. Why do we give additional allocations to counties, Honorable Speaker? Part of the reason why we give additional monies to counties, they are segmented in various areas. One, they are foreign funded programs, and especially domiciled in agriculture. And I can see the chair for agriculture is here. If you look at that additional allocation bill, Honorable Speaker, you'll find that there are many programs, because Kenya is largely an agricultural economy. There are many programs, either through loans or grants or foreigners, that is foreign funded, that actually goes into counties. These are the monies that have to come to this House, and of course emanating from the Senate, so that we give our final approval. Honorable Speaker, there are other elements. For example, when we had devolution, we realized there were 5 counties, Tharaka-Nithi being one of them, that actually had no headquarters. Honorable Speaker, when there was no headquarter or any structure to call a county headquarter, the national government felt it would not be very proper for us to commit equitable share into building county headquarters. So, for example, in the same bill, there are 5 counties that get money from GOK as grants for building or as additional revenue for building of county headquarters. And they have been funded for some time. Some of these headquarters are at 90% completion. and we funded them with anticipation that the monies we have allocated will be enough to conclude this particular area. Honorable Speaker, there are other areas in terms of conditional grants, and I am sure the members I can see are already perusing. Number one, our report is the Budget Committee, but also number two, the bill itself, so that we then realize what are these additional monies that we are giving to our counties. As I come to the close, Honorable Speaker, I am very elated with the kind of partnership that we are seeing between the county governments and the national government. One of the areas that will really benefit the economy of Kenya is the partnership of the national government with the counties, Honorable Speaker, insofar as building aggregation and industrial centers is concerned. Allocating 4.7 billion Kenya shillings, then counties match a shilling per shilling. That will be 9.4 billion Kenya shillings. This money, Honorable Speaker, will be going into building of aggregation and industrial centers. And again, as I said, Kenya being a largely dominant agricultural economy, this will go a long way, Honorable Speaker, in harnessing prices for our farmers. You know, Honorable Speaker, when farming or agriculture is pegged on weather, when agriculture is pegged on seasons, Honorable Speaker, farmers are not able to optimize the best prices. Because once you have proceeds or a production from tomatoes, for example, you have no luxury of keeping them for you to fetch better prices in future. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, the reason why post-harvest losses accounts for a huge loss for farmers across. Honorable Speaker, when you go to, for example, cereals, farmers lose between 20 to 30% in post-harvest losses. The highest losses, Honorable Speaker, are actually in perishables. They go even up to 50% when you talk about fruits and vegetables, because some of these fruits come in season. And when it is the season, the market gets flooded with oversupply, yet demand remains the same. So, Honorable Speaker, these aggregation centers are coming also to address that, because all of them will have a cold room where farmers can keep their produce, Honorable Speaker, so that we have a flat supply curve, and therefore farmers are able to fetch reasonable prices and optimal prices for their produce. Honorable Speaker, I want to request this House, as we debate this bill, you are free to debate anything about counties. It's not just about the additional revenue. You can debate anything around county governments. You can debate, as Honorable Gigi Kagombe suggested, you can debate anything about the budget, because this is also a budget-making process. So, Honorable Speaker, I thank you, and I request one of the members who have served for very many terms, I think this is the 5th term as a politician, and with a great experience on how county governments operate, because he served in the defunct municipal councils of the previous dispensation, the honorable member from Nakuru town, the chairman for mining and environment, the Honorable David Gekaria to second.
Thank you, Honorable Dede Nyoro, Chairman, Budget and Appropriation Committee.
Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We've been told we can discuss anything, which is important. As I rise to second, Honorable Speaker, the first thing that I wanted to agree with you is from the past, the former motion that was there, was about how our farmers are suffering. And it is true, Honorable Speaker. We were being given a story where in the last regime, a minister would get investors, but because he also want to do that business, he would be discussing the investors are in one room, they are waiting in his room, and he would transfer from his room to the other until he gets the best prices for his cut. That's when now he would come back. And I totally agree, Honorable Speaker, that what you're saying, if we could be able to take that seriously, then this country and our farmers would be. I take this opportunity also to thank the Chair Budget for the good work that his team is doing. Of course, with his team, I've been able to be summoned before the committee severally. And I want to admit that this committee has pledged to be able to listen to what chairs of various committees are proposing from their respective committees, and they are taking our input into consideration when we are making some of the amendments when we are doing our budgets. And I totally want to thank you, Chairman, for the good work. And as it was said, young as you are, on your second term in this parliament, and of course, currently now holding a very senior position in one of the very, very important committee, I want to say that you and your committee, you are doing a good job. Honorable Speaker, when I come back to this motion, the county government additional allocation, it has been accused, the Kenya Kwanza government has been accused that we are not, we want to kill devolution. And Honorable Speaker, it is very evident that from the few months that the Kenya government, the Kenya Kwanza government has been in administration, it has actually portrayed the necessity and the need for us to improve what counties are doing in terms of as per Schedule 4 and what counties are supposed, the responsibility of county governments. But at the same time, Honorable Speaker, it is the honors of these county governments, particularly with their respective governors, to understand that they should not always wait for monies coming from the national government. Of course, as per the Constitution, we are supposed to allocate money to county government, and this Kenya Kwanza government has been able to improve on that, and we hope it will continue increasing the allocation in the years to come. But at the same time, Honorable Speaker, these county governments have the responsibility of their own collection at their own counties. Honorable Speaker, it is so sad that these days you go to a county that it is just waiting for allocation from the national government. I want to thank a few counties, like in my county, Nakuru County, and I want to thank my governor for her resilience in not only waiting for allocations, much as they have not been received their monies from Treasury for the few days, at least whatever the governor is collecting, she is able to at least do the operations and maintenance of the county, and at the same time trying to talk to different financial institutions to be able to meet the salaries and other. And we have never, in Nakuru County, we've never had a problem in terms of where workers go on strike. So it is important for counties also to take responsibility for what they are supposed to collect as their own resources. And of course, they should be told, Honorable Speaker. Counties have had a tendency of cross-border double taxation that you find if you have an advertisement, for example, in your vehicle. Once you cross from Nakuru County to Kericho County, there are some charges that, but again, I want to say that this double taxation should be discouraged so that we can continue encouraging more business people and more investors to be able to actualize what they're, and we stop this aspect of double taxation. On regards to and of course the chair budget has properly explained why we are giving additional resources to counties. And one of the fundamental issues, Honorable Speaker, that is the key and the backbone of this country is about the foreign funded programs, particularly on agriculture. And it is important, Honorable Speaker, that the former regime had negotiated for coolers, only for the coolers to arrive, and they were never given to counties. And I want to thank the government that it has made a commitment that these coolers which were given as a fund by our partners, now they have found their way to various counties where they can be able to preserve. And as the chairman has indicated, a lot of our farmers do not get the potential of the maximizing what they are supposed to get from their crops. And it's, most of it is destroyed either through transportation, and particularly the perishables, where you are not able to preserve them in the coolers. So the actual giving of coolers and encouraging counties to be able to install this thing in various places for purposes of preservation, it will help the farmers to be able to get enough yield or a maximum input or income from their proceeds. About the relationship and partnership between the national government and the county government, Honorable Speaker, and I think that is critical, that constantly, I think the Deputy President does chair a meeting between the national government and the Council of Governors, which of course they discuss various issues related to the relationship between the national government and the county government. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that if we can be able to have a proper relationship between the national government and the county government, then, Honorable Speaker, then this country will be able to. But also, Honorable Speaker, just to touch on a little bit on about the supplementary budget. And I want to thank the Budget Committee led by Honorable Dendinyoro. Honorable Speaker, it is important that Treasury has had that tendency of removing very important funds that are supposed to go towards addressing some key projects within various ministries. But Honorable, that committee has stood firm, and it has already given back these monies to respective ministries. Honorable Speaker, Treasury must realize that whatever is budgeted for and items and approved by Parliament, I think committees have an opportunity to have ventilated on most of these things. And it is important for them to realize that what the Budget Committee, and I want to thank the Budget Committee for what you have done. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that the County Government Additional Allocation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 23 of 2023, be read a second time. Yes, what is your point of order, Mr. Bowen? Honorable Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the chair of budget actually in the had raised that we reduce the publication of some bills here from 7 days to 1 day because of many other bills which are supposed to be prosecuted. Many of the members who are here also, some of them they have sat here from morning up to now, they are seeking to contribute to various bills. Mr. Speaker, would I be in order that we reduce from 10 minutes per member to 3 minutes to enable all these members to speak on these many bills?
What's your point of order, Honorable Dr. Gogo?
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. It is on the same reason that I was thrown out of this house yesterday. Parliament is not going to be turned into a voting machine. We need to expedite issues through debate, through looking at the pros and cons of matters, and the world is watching us. We will not just keep passing bills and we just pass. County, additional monies that are allocated to counties is a very, very important matter. And we are not going to have members from the opposite side keep shutting down and gagging down members and changing. I belong to the House Rules and Procedures Committee. And we are not going to have the rules and procedures just changed at will, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I have been in this House what is out of order, Honorable Speaker, is that we are not going to have members keep changing House rules and procedures at will to make it convenient for them.
Order, Honorable Gogo. I appreciate your concerns, but on the reduction of the time that members would want to be allocated, is a matter that can only be done with the leave of the House. The chair has very little, and this is the beginning of it, and the honorable member has risen on that. I will put the question on that, and if in the wisdom of the majority of the members here, you feel you don't need 3 minutes, you need 10 minutes, then so be it. If you're going to need 3 minutes per person, per member of parliament, then it can only be done with the leave of the House. It's not them changing, that's how the rules are. Honorable members, I now put the question that the time for every member to contribute on this bill be reduced to 3 minutes. As many of the opinion say aye. Aye. As many of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. The House rules are set by and large when it comes to such things by the members themselves. I want you to understand the traditions. This is an area. The only time when it can get frivolous is when a matter is being debated and somebody rises and says the mover be called upon to reply. Then the chair has got the wisdom to look at the minority and the majority on both sides and then say this is a frivolous one. But on the time you need to, for every member of parliament to deliberate on a bill, that is by the leave of the House. Proceed. The Honorable Waluke.
Additional. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me chance also to speak. Honorable Speaker, many of us came here earlier, like Kikali and others, to fill the quorum. And I concur with the Mheshimiwa Kogo, Honorable Speaker. There are members who can come even just now and are given chance, and those who came earlier can sit here for a whole day. Honorable Speaker, I want to support the bill. I want to thank the Honorable Didi Nyoro and with the committee for the time they have taken, Honorable Speaker, to bring up this budget appropriation bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this country has a lot of potential. And Mr. Speaker, if the people of this country can support agriculture the way you put it earlier on, Mr. Speaker, this country is going to move forward. I urge Kenyans and members of this House that let's be together and give space and time and support to this government, because it has just come in power the other day. And let's give it a trial, let's give it a support, our total support. And this country, I know people are feeling pain because of the economy coming down, but within a very few months or a year, Honorable Speaker, the economy of this country is going to stabilize. With these people, Didi Nyoro and the Chair of Finance, they are steady on their duty, and let us support them. Honorable Speaker, agriculture need to be supported. If the government can support a farmer, this country depends on farming. The economy of this country, Honorable Speakers, depend mostly on farming, coffee, tea, whatever. And Honorable Speaker, I believe that this year, people have been crying about anger. We are going to harvest, we are going to have bumper harvest, Mr. Speaker, of maize like where we come from. Mr. Speaker, in another maybe 2 years, we will not be crying of food shortage. And I believe and thank the President for bringing up the fertilizer to the people of this country, Honorable Speaker. And we are ready as leaders from where we come from to make sure that we work together with our
Honorable Mutunga of Tigania West.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this motion. Honourable Speaker, I wish to thank the chairman of the Budget and Appropriation Committee for the work that has gone by, and also thank the President for guiding this committee very well. Honourable Speaker, I want to thank the Senate for presenting this bill to us. Additional resources to the counties, Honourable Speaker, is a good idea, but this idea must be tagged to results. Honourable Speaker, we know we have been having issues with several counties not even delivering what they are supposed to deliver. Investment must be done appropriately. We must have results for the money that we give to the counties. Honourable Speaker,